So, good evening, everyone. I'm Jonathan Ho, Chairman of the BU Hong Kong Alumni Association. Welcome to the BU Speaker Series, which features distinguished leaders in Hong Kong to share their stories and insights. We're very honored today to have Mr. Bernard Chan as our inaugural speaker for this evening. And let's start by just welcoming Bernard, and thank you for being here. So I've known Bernard since my time at high school, so it's a very special pleasure for me to interview the person I look up to all these years. So here's a summary of Bernard's background, which actually took me a while to craft because he's one of the most accomplished person in Hong Kong with so many achievements and titles to cover.
That's too long. I think you just...
I'll try to make it short. Bernard Chan is a well-known figure in Hong Kong's business, government, and public service circles. A graduate of Pomona College in California, Bernard is the president and chairman of Asia Financial Holdings and chairman of Asia Insurance. He is the chairman of the Hong Kong-Thailand Business Council and sits on the boards of several listed companies, including Cathay Pacific and CLP Holdings. Bernard also has a long record of public service. He is the chairman of M+ Museum and Tai Kwun Culture and Arts, as well as vice chairman of West Kowloon Cultural District Authority, and recently appointed as chairman of our Hong Kong Foundation. He is also the chairperson of the Hong Kong Council of Social Service and a steward of the Hong Kong Jockey Club. On the political side, Bernard was the former Hong Kong deputy to the Nationalist People Congress and also the convener of the non-official members of the Executive Council. He is also a former member of the Hong Kong Legislative Council, representing the insurance industry. He also chaired various government statutory and advisory bodies spanning heritage conservation, sustainable development, and higher education, among others. In 2020, Bernard was awarded the Grand Bauhinia Medal, the highest civilian award in Hong Kong, in recognition of his service and contribution to Hong Kong. So Bernard, it's great to have you here, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, Jonathan.
I have several areas of questions
Did we disclose our mutual interests?
Not yet. So
maybe you should.
Yeah, so me and Bernard is actually went all the way back to my high school because we went to the same boarding school in Philadelphia. And that's why I know him.
Many years apart, though.
Many years apart, like 10-ish years. And I worked for him during my summer intern, and that's how we keep our relationship till now. He's a very great friend and a mentor of mine. So I have several areas of questions that I'd like to get into with you today. But first, I would like to rewind all the way back to your early life. So you have a Thai middle name that is used in many media, where you're named Bernard Charnwut Chan.
Right.
So are you from a Hong Kong family or a Thai family?
In fact, I only added my Thai name to my Hong Kong name only back in 2004. The reason to that was up until 2004, I used to hold a Thai passport. And the reason to that is my grandfather, again, this is tricky because when I say I'm Thai Chinese, I think that for those of us in Hong Kong, you immediately can jump into that conclusion that, oh, he's Chinese, but with Thai connection. But if I say I'm Thai Chinese to Westerners, they thought that, oh, my mother must be Chinese, my dad is Thai, which is not true. So yeah, my dad is the only person in his generation, the second generation, that was born and raised in the village in China, in Swatao, Chuzhou. But all his other siblings was born and raised in Thailand. So we are the only branch of the family that, and of course I'm born and raised in Hong Kong, right? Because the fact that my father already came to Hong Kong at the time from China. So I'm definitely 100% Hong Kong, but all my extended family members are based in Bangkok. I have one brother and two sisters. My brothers and I are the only two in Hong Kong. My two sisters, one is in US, one in KL. But all my relatives and my shareholders, they're my shareholders, because I manage one of the family companies, and all of them are my shareholders. They are Thai-based. So up until 2004, I used to hold a Thai passport, and I have to give it up when I joined the Hong Kong government. And when I was invited to join the Executive Council in 2004, I have to give it up because all Executive Councillor cannot hold a right of a boat outside of Hong Kong. So, and because I give up my Thai passport, at the time I thought, well, I kind of want to keep a part of that heritage and legacy with me. So I decided to use, because Charnwut is actually my first name in my Thai name. So my Thai name is Charnwut Sopompanik. And Sopompanik is a last name, uniquely for our family. If those of you know Thailand, one last name for one family. So if you ever come across another Sopompanik, it's definitely for my family. And there's 103 of us. I have to know them all. They're my shareholders. And so I can't use that last name because I give up the Thai passport. But I decided to keep the first name, Charnwut. So I used that first name as my middle name in my Hong Kong name. Does that make it easier? Right.
So coming from a prominent Thai-Chinese family, your grandfather, Chin Sopunpanit, founded the Bangkok Bank, and your father was a founder of the Asia Financial Holdings. So what was it like growing up in a family of entrepreneurs, and what impact did they make on your upbringing?
Well, obviously, as you put it, my grandfather was a banker. By the way, back at his time, I'm pretty sure he didn't consider himself a banker. Back then, it's money lender. He only had a primary school education, right? He didn't study accountancy. He doesn't have all these fancy stuff. Like most other people at their generation, they start from nothing, right? So, in fact, I would consider them microfinancing of today's term, right? He's lending to people he trusts. And it's amazing, right? Because unlike today where you will need to have collateral, you have this, and back then, what's collateral, right? It's a matter of trust. Any of you ever get a copy of Robert Kwok, Carrie Holding Chairman, Robert Kwok's memoir? Have you read it? If you read it, I was so touched. I have to pay Mr. Robert Kwok a visit to thank him, because in his memoir, there's 3 pages in his memoir titled, My First Loan. It was from my grandfather. So he talked about how he met my grandfather, and he was a nobody at the time. So he thanked my grandfather for trusting him. Again, back those at the time when nobody have anything, right? And he's from Malaysia at the time, but my grandfather's in Thailand. So, but they're Chinese, and of course, it's a trust that was, obviously, we make bad judgment too, but thankfully, we made a lot of good judgment. And so it was actually the clients that done well that actually helped the bank, right? It's not us, it's the clients, right? The clients do well, we do well. So anyway, so I grew up in a family where my grandfather's a banker, my dad's a banker, my uncle's a banker, my brother's a banker. So growing up, I thought that would be what my career should be. And I aspired to be a banker too, right? Because that's obviously at the time too, banking is still considered, sorry, I'm not saying banking is not today very prestigious, but certainly not like what it used to be for sure. So my first job after college was also working in the bank in the US.
So being raised in Hong Kong, you then went to, I just mentioned the high school in Philadelphia. So how was your experience there compared to your early school days in Hong Kong?
I never really have to bring this up, but now is the topic of this month. So I want you to all to know, before the Hill School, I went to Rosary Hill School in Hong Kong. And so now it's a center of all the controversy. I'm very much involved with the controversy as well. I've been helping the school for now 6-7 years. What just happened in the last couple of weeks didn't happen just the last couple of weeks. It's been ongoing for some time. And this is actually part of the issue for Hong Kong. It's about secession. It's about transformation. That I'm sure that is happening in many industries, in Hong Kong as a whole, and as well as in the school and in the church. So anyway, and I want to bring this up because I had the best 3 years at the Rosary Hill. I think Rosary Hill, even though I only spent 3 years, I still remain very active connecting to the school. Probably not today as much because I try to lay low. I don't want people to, Because I do actually receive a number of requests from alumni, both here and overseas, and saying, why aren't you doing something? I didn't dare to tell them that I've been working on it already for a few years, but it's sad. But the school has a lot of connection with me. And then, of course, follow on to the US, where Jonathan, you and I, and this, that school. So every place I went, I felt a lot about it, because it's create whoever I am today, right? So from the 3 years at Rosary Hill to 3 years at the Hill, then of course on to Pomona. And what was your question again? Forgot.
Oh, just how's your experience in the U.S., in the high school U.S. compared to your early school days in Hong Kong?
Different, right? Those 3 years at the Rosary Hill has transformed me, because I was a complete reject. As I went to anyone from St. Joseph Primary School here? St. Joseph? Hong Kong St. Joseph. There's a different St. Joseph? There's Hong Kong St. Joseph. Oh, sorry. I'm talking about the Wan Chai St. Joseph.
Yeah, here.
Yeah, he knows. Yeah. And I wasn't a good student. I think I came 37 or 38 out of a class of 43. And so obviously I was not, he knows the story. So I was not good enough to promote it to the high school at Kennedy Row. That's Kennedy, right? At Kennedy Row. So then automatically the system, computer, assigned me to Rosary Hill School. And when I first walked into the classroom of this new school that I was being assigned to, I recognized half the students in the class. The reason why I recognize half of them, they're all the rejects from St. Joseph. So I really feel at ease at home. And turns out that was the best thing that ever happened to me, because that's where I actually rebuilt my confidence, right? So that's why I tell people, hey, sometime when things didn't happen the way you wanted, maybe that's a good reason. Like in my case, I'm very sure if I would have marginally make it to St. Joseph College, I would continue to be at the bottom of the class. Whereas at Rosary Hill, I actually came top 3, all 3 years I was there. And I think that really was the turning point of myself. And on to the Hill, of course, that's another thing. But what actually, I think at the Pomona College, some of you may have already read about it, I got sick very early on. It was 2 weeks after I started my freshman year at Pomona, and I got sick. And 3 months later, I was diagnosed with a rare disease, and they have to operate me. So I had to have a bypass my carotid. This is called carotid area. So they put artificial arteries to my brain, and they did a balloons to my 2 kidneys. But that surgery didn't work didn't last very long. So the subsequent year, they have to do a double renal bypass to my both kidneys. And then on my 3rd year, they have to redo it again, because it was also even the artificial arteries were affected. So basically, the first 3 years in my college life, I was in and out hospital. And that also completely changed my perspective to life, to purposes, and everything else. So if that's the question you want to know, because it was not a fun time, but the support I got from my schoolmates and friends and actually helped me to move on, right? But then, of course, I spent another subsequent 10 years continue to deal with the health issues. So it's not that anything actually changed much, although the disease itself is in remission, but the damage is done. So I lost 50% of the function, both my kidney function, both kidneys are lost by half of the function. And so that actually helps me to change my diet, change my lifestyle, change everything. And but no regret. Of course, it took me 10 years to overcome that. I mean, not overcome the disease. The disease is still going on, still there. Disease is actually in remission, but damage are done, right? But it took me 10 years to learn to accept that. There was a lot of pain to go through that. You start off with denial. You go through that phases with denial and to blaming everyone else. To finally, I don't know what happened, but somehow, magically, I finally learned to accept that this is going to be my life for the rest of my life, and I try to make the best out of it. I think that was to sum up the whole experience in my education years.
Yep. So after all that, you then went into the family business. You worked in a bank in New York first, and then subsequently into politics at your 30s. Like, you were once the youngest member of the executive and legislative council. So, can you describe how that transition was made and why you decided to get into politics?
I mean, nobody knew politics at the time, right? Today, I think most people understand what politics is about, but at the time of the Hong Kong return to China, I don't think anybody understand what politics meant. But anyway, I mean, again, like everything else happened in my life, it didn't, I mean, I didn't ask for it, things just happened. Someone here in the audience, Vivian, will know. Vivian's from Dai Kwun. I work very closely with Dai Kwun nowadays, and I didn't ask for it. It was put to me. So every time you see me involving with something, almost 90% of the time, it wasn't because of me. I was sent there, right? So again, politics. What politics? I mean, why would we want to be in politics? But so what happened was in '98, after Hong Kong returned to China, there was the first election, legislative election, and as you described earlier, there's a seat for insurance. So wait, I got to backtrack a bit. So I thought I always wanted to be in banking. But then my father told me, hey, we also invest in an insurance company, and no one in the family understands insurance. You should go and learn insurance. So very, very unwillingly, I went. Because why? Well, you call banker a banker. What do you call insurance? Sales? Agent? So I feel like, oh my goodness, sorry, no offending anybody from the insurance industry. Yeah? I represent insurance. I'm very proud of insurance. But at the time, it's like, I feel like, wow, I'm being downgraded. Right? I'm going from banker to insurance. In fact, many years ago, I don't think we do this anymore. When you enter Hong Kong, you have to fill in a arrival card. There's a column. I think they removed that column for visitor, right? None of us need to do it, but for visitors, you're supposed to put in your profession. I put in banker all those years, right? Because again, I don't know what to put for insurance, right? What is it? I mean, you don't say insurer. Insurer is insurance company, right? We don't even have a proper title, right? So I was like, no. So I only agreed to my father to go into insurance company to be involved in the investment side, right? So I can still tell people I'm in financial services rather than insurance. So you can understand that kind of the mindset I had. Very unwillingly, I went. And again, amazingly, just like I said about my health, every step I went, right? I didn't go to Rosary Hill by intention. Turns out that was the best thing happened in my life. Obviously, I didn't want to be sick, but looking back, that was the best thing ever happened in my life, although it's a very painful one. Huge cost, but today, if I look back, I still think that was the best thing happened to my life. Again, I didn't go to insurance willingly. But turns out that completely changed my life also, right? Because it wasn't for that, I would never get into politics. So anyway, at the election, there were already 3 candidates at the time showing interest. It's supposed to be individual, but then people automatically associate you to who you work for. So there's 3 candidates at the time. One worked for AIA, so that's US interest. One worked for AXA, so French interest. And the third person worked for Guardian. It's a UK company, no longer around. The company got acquired by AXA. So among the local companies, they saying, hey, wow, this is our first election, Hong Kong election. By the way, those days, the Chinese company, the mainland Chinese SOE, they would not want to involve at all. They stay away from it. So you have the international company, which are the majority, and then you have a few local ones. So among the local one, they said, well, we can't let all the oil companies to be taking advantage. So they asked my boss, not me, they asked my boss. Nobody knows me. They asked my boss to go for it. And my boss is like 60 something. He said, well, I know nothing about politics and I'm too old for this. So anyway, back and forth. Finally, I think he decided to come over to me because my room is 2 rooms away from him. He came over to me and said, hey, why don't you give it a try? Still to today, he's still living. So I'm still not sure. He's actually want to do me a favor, or he just want to get rid of me, right? Because he thought, hey, this guy's keep overlooking at me. Why don't send him off to do this? He said to me, hey, your father wants you to learn about insurance. This is the fastest way to learn about insurance. So initially I said, you're kidding me, right? No, like you, I said, I don't know insurance, and I don't know politics, but worse, I don't even know insurance. I know about only 30 people at a time, and all 30 of them are my colleagues in my company, right? So I know nothing about the industry, nor anyone. But then he said to me, so, well, what do you got to lose, right? So again, after a while, I thought, yeah, why not? So I start going to cold call. I really cold call because, again, nobody knows me, right? So I'm cold calling on everybody. At the end, I won. I was 20 years younger than all three, each of the three, and I won by less than 10 votes. And I'm very, very sure I won because of not me, because of the other three, right? First of all, those three, they've been around industry for a very long time, right? And who are the voters? Who are their voters? Nobody know? They're competitors, right? Every company has a vote, right? So the people you're competing with all your life, now you have to ask them for a vote. So I bet among the three of them, they have made some enemies along the way, right? They probably make some enemies along the way. Second reason, again, there are people who are thinking, wow, these three are big companies. Would this actually create a comparative advantage for them? My company is the smallest, right? So I'm no threat to anyone. So the lesson I always learn, you cannot be a threat to anybody, right? Once you become a threat, then so reason I always find out why I'm being chosen for the different job because I'm not a threat to anyone, right? It makes a difference. I always find. Anyway. So, of course, the other reason I think is, the other three cannot really overpromise anybody because they've been around too long. People can read you. I'm a complete rookie. Nobody knows anything about me. So, but anyway, I only marginally won by less than 10 votes. But that obviously completely changed my life. So it's actually only after I won that I got really, really scared. Because what is this? Because I didn't expect to win. But the good news was, politics was so new to everyone. So even though I'm a rookie, but so are most people at the time.
Everyone is new to politics.
And of course, immediately after the election, or actually even before the election, there was Asia financial crisis. So it's actually, I've been very gifted to have this opportunity to take part of this past 25 years of Hong Kong since the return to China. We've gone through many ups and downs, and as you put it, I spent 14 and a half years in executive council with 4 different chief executives, and it's been a journey. I'm very fortunate and blessed to have these opportunities, and lots of ups and downs during those whole 20 years.
So as you just mentioned, we have gone through a lot of ups and downs, and especially the last couple of years, we've gone through some difficult times, and some people like the younger generation or some businessmen have lost some direction or confidence, but on the other side, the government and a lot of people are working really hard to make Hong Kong come back stronger. So what's your perspective of the future of Hong Kong, and what can we do to make Hong Kong more relevant and competitive in the long run?
My job today, every day, is meeting our people, talking to people. And Jonathan, you're absolutely correct. People in this town are lost, right? not only they're lost, they just don't have the confidence about their future. But honestly, I don't blame them, right? It is a very confusing time. Well, so we have our own problem. Of course, then you have also the international side of things, right? We are living in a very polarized world today. And so how do we play this one country, two system, right? I'm very fortunate during those 20 years. I spent 15 years in the People's Congress in the mainland. I sat on state-owned company. I think that actually helped me a lot to understand from the other perspective. See, I think the one challenges that most of you, any of you here from the mainland China? Okay, thank you. Now, when I joined politics in 98, right, July 98, for some reason, I can't remember whether that was a specific message, but at least what came through me at the time was, 50 years unchanged, right? Now, either you believe it or you don't believe it. Right? I believe that easily a third of Hong Kong people are going to remain skeptical towards the Communist Party, right? 1/3 easily, right? Those 1/3. No matter what you said, who said it, they're not going to believe it. So for that 1/3, forget it. 50 years unchanged is not relevant, okay? Then you probably have another 20%, 25% Hong Kong that are very pro-China. Of course, they will probably agree. Then leaving another 30, 40% in the middle, where, so long that quality of life, the jobs is okay, everything's okay, the core value of Hong Kong remain, which is meaning the freedom of expression, the legal status, the independent judiciary system. I think they will come along, right? Those 40% in the middle. Now, I think I see myself as that 40%. Well, lives are good, so far so good, right? So when I was told that 50 years unchanged, I was 33 at the time when I got elected, right? 50 years, 33, 83. I'm thinking, 50 years unchanged? It's not my problem, right? I won't be around. Because, by the way, I missed an important message too. My doctor, after my third surgery, right, told me that, hey, you have to start, I was 20 years old at the time. My doctor said, you have to start behaving like you are a person of 50 years old, right? Because my body is not like any of you in this room, right? So you should start behaving like you're 50. So when I was in my 20s, I set myself a goal to reach 50. Because by 50, it means I will be probably 80. Anyway, but my point is, so I thought, well, I won't even be able to live to 80 some years. So it's not my problem. And I think that is all our problems today, because none of us ever have prepared for that integration with the mainland, as if like that would never happen in our lifetime. Now we don't have to guess anymore, right? That, oh my goodness, just in 20 years, they caught up with us, right? And many of our problems that we are facing today are largely to do with that. By the way, we still do not have plans to integrate, how to integrate with the mainland. The turning point to me, at least how I see it, was 2003. After 2003, right, we have very little to do with the mainland other than maybe business, blah, blah, blah. What happened in 2003? SARS. By May and June of 2003, we panicked, right? Property price sunk by 50%, no tourists coming in. So what did we do? Mr. Tong, at that time, and I was already a LegCo member, Mr. Tong went to Beijing and asked Beijing for help. Please help. How? Remember, up to then, Chinese tourists are not freely to come to Hong Kong. They're only allowed to come to Hong Kong under package tour, and there's a specific quota, because the Chinese didn't want them to come. Beijing wants to keep them away from coming to Hong Kong, deliberately. Don't blame Beijing. All along Beijing say, no, they don't let them come. But we went and asked them, please open the doors, right? So they did. That's when the single, whatever I call it, 自由行, start to open up. And together with the IPOs and all the SOE coming to Hong Kong and then everything else. So guess what? From that point onward, the 2003 onward, we have massive, massive economic and social integrations with the mainland. Massive. But yet, we have no political integration because it's two systems. But it's not realistic. When you have massive economic and massive social, here comes the politics, right? When your property prices has been pushed up by the mainland Chinese, when average 10% of the students in the university, the 8 government public universities are from the mainland, and they are the cream of the 1 billion people. Guess what? So many of them took up most of the scholarship. They also get the best jobs, and so on and so on. But we never prepare for that. I told this exact same message to the leaders in Beijing, because when he asked me, what is wrong with Hong Kong? Why are you guys so against us? We're going backward and forward for you guys, and yet why are you guys think that we're there to hurt you? I said, well, I try to explain to this, right? But whose fault was that? Well, looking back, I think we did not prepare for those unintended consequences. And my second son was born in 2003. So a few years later, I took him to Ocean Park. Where else, right? I went to Ocean Park, it's like 90% are mainlanders, right? I thought, oh, I'm not coming again. But was that their fault? Our fault? No. Numbers were good, right? Ocean Park is now in trouble. Why are they in trouble? Because in 2003, things are start really, doing so much better with all these breweries. Guess what? They expand. What hurt the Ocean Park wasn't because of Ocean Park, because they thought these numbers keep going. I'm sorry, he's my good friend, Alan Zeman, but actually it was Alan Zeman's fault. Because when he was chairman, things are going so well. So they went in there and borrow money and expansions. And actually, if I were to be in his position in this, I would do probably the same. But then, guess what? There are better amusement park happen in Changlong and everything else. All of a sudden, oh no, competition. Just like we're now today talking about people going to Shenzhen to spend and so on. So don't blame Beijing. I mean, obviously we're trying to find fault in somebody else. Oh, it must be. Actually, it's just that because we never thought that we ever have to integrate with the other side. But now they are very much part of us. Then what do? We still don't have a plan. Well, I mean, so these are the things that I think it was interesting over the 20 years I see. I mean, I actually have to say I make a several mistake myself. Even I can't say that was only my fault, but that's definitely I'm part of that decision, and we didn't see that at the time. Right? We definitely didn't see that coming. But of course now that is all history. Now, but the trouble is, as I explained to the leaders in Beijing, and as he asked me, this comment he made I thought was spot on, but then I don't know how to respond to him. Because when I was explaining why the young people are frustrated, people feel like, their interests are not protected and so on. And then he looked at me and said, this leader, I won't mention his name, he's looked at me and he's like, wait, I thought you guys are an international city. You are talking about protectionism. And then he reminded me, the jobs in Beijing are not safe for Beijing local people. They're for the entire China, students from China to compete for. It's like, okay, he's right, but I can't come back to Hong Kong and tell my young people who say, oh, tough luck, You got to compete with 1 billion people. Right? But that's the reality, right? So that was tough. I mean, I still don't have the answer, by the way. But definitely, we cannot close doors, right? We'll be marginalized even faster if we do so. But this is the trouble. How do you tell our young people? I'm excited about the future because China needs Hong Kong. The leaders in Beijing make it very clear to me that's our comparative advantage, the one country, two system. We must continue to play the international card. But the problem is, what does that mean, right? You have to we have to use the international angle to add value to China. That is the only assurance to the one country, two system, right? Because you think about it, right? When Xi Jinping came last July in his opening remark, now again, you have to be those from the mainland to understand that every word Chinese politicians use has a meaning. So in his speech, and I knew that beforehand, but of course his speech confirmed that, was he started off saying, oh, one country, two systems, great. You know, our 1.4 billion people think it's great. Hong Kong people think it's great, so why change? What did I just say? No, what did I say? What did I start off with? Xi Jinping said what? He said 1.4 billion people said it's great. Did he ask 1.4 billion people? Hell no. But he brought 1.4 billion people, that phrase, into his sentence, meaning what? Meaning it has to be Chinese people have to think it's great too. One country, two system is no longer just for Hong Kong people. It may have been 40 years ago. If the one country, two system is only good for Hong Kong people, we are dead for sure. Today, why would the 1 billion, let's not use 1 billion. There are 400 million rising middle class in China. Why would that 400 million say, oh, well, just let the 7.4 million spoiled brat in Hong Kong to entitle to these special privileges? How could it be? Xi Jinping or whoever the leaders in Beijing needs to also convince their own that only Hong Kong deserves these special rights. And he can only do that if we add value to them. So Hong Kong needs to always stay ahead and stay special and create that value. That is our survival is. But the trouble is, in order for us to stay ahead, to add value, what's the number one thing we need to do? No, but think about it, right? We want to add value to them, right? So what do we need to know first? What do you say? What do they need? If we don't even understand what they need, how on earth are we going to add value? This is now the biggest nightmare for us. If our young people don't even want to deal with China, they want to engage with China, how on earth are we going to create value for them? That's my biggest worry. I just feel that, and it's not easy to understand China, especially if they grew up in Hong Kong or went to Pomona College or BU. It's even more remote that they will even want to deal with China, right? Then we're in trouble for sure. But don't worry, Hong Kong will be good. Hong Kong will no problem because China wants Hong Kong to remain special. Hong Kong will be okay. But it's not going to be Hong Kong people calling the shot. I'm sorry to put you on the spotlight. There will be tons of people from the mainland coming to Hong Kong because they see the value in us. They see the value of Hong Kong, and they understand China, I hope, and they will know how to add value. So please, we have to tell our next generation, don't give up. This is our town. I'm not saying that we should not let the mainland Chinese come. No, we welcome everyone. But don't give up ourselves. When you give up ourselves, don't blame China. Don't blame Beijing. Just like 2003, I knew it because Mr. Tong told me. Beijing initially saying, no, are you sure you want me to come, send tourists to you? But we were desperate. We need them. That's why our economy is a V-shaped rebound. Well, and then the unintended consequences came after that. Needs Hong Kong. They need that special international gateway to the world. No joking, right? In Xi Jinping's speech, 2 times he referenced to common law. I checked, never once a leader from Beijing ever mentioned your special legal status. And he didn't just say legal status. He referenced twice to common law, especially when he mentioned his hope for Hong Kong. He mentioned again. Right? Because clearly, that message is not for you and I, right? Because we took for granted. It's not for us. It's for the international community to know that, hey, Hong Kong will remain that special. Because everyone already assuming that, China and Hong Kong is one country, one system. But he specifically referenced to common law, remain, because it's good for China. Anyway, again, if you're the 1/3 that don't trust Communist Party, then of course, nothing I said just now meant anything to you. I do. I think that this is a blessing for us, that we still have a future. Back in 2019 and 2020, honestly, I wasn't so sure anymore. Like everyone else, I was like, oh my goodness, how are we going to go forward? And I assure you, for sure, right, even at the middle of that 2019 unrest, there are people back in Beijing who think that, oh, forget it, just take over. One country, one system, might as well. Thankfully, those who believe that they should stick on managed to stay on. But it was divided. How divided, I don't know, but for sure it's divided. You can imagine, right? It's like, what the hell happened? But now I am very confident because I think, especially today, given the geopolitical tension, the role of Hong Kong is even more important. But equally, it is also very challenging. It's not like the old time anymore. The old time, we used to take advantage of both systems. Today, especially when the two systems are going further apart, for example, like COVID, oh my goodness, which side are you on? So increasingly, I think it's not going to be business as usual. And that's where we can also add value. If it's so easy, then anyone can do it, right? This is the part that require us to always to be creative and figure out in this whole very divided and geopolitical tensions, right? Especially US and China, what's the role of Hong Kong when everyone is de-risking from China and Hong Kong, right? Then what? I think, sorry, I think I took up too much time from your prepared questions. But I thought this is important, right?
Yeah.
I think this is an important message that I need to share.
Yes. So apart from politics, you are very active on the cultural and art side in Hong Kong. So being the chairman of M+, and before that, the Hong Kong Past Museum. And apparently, we can see the two museums are very welcomed by the public, and the West Kowloon District has become a very distinct and art cultural exchange center. So I'm really interested to know about how the West Kowloon Cultural District came about. And can you tell us about the history of the background and how it evolved to its current state?
Oh my God.
Yep. It's going
to take a long time. No, again, it's amazing. It all started back in 1998 in Mr. Tong's policy address in 1998. There's a one paragraph. By the way, I didn't even remember that. It's only until about a year ago I started, because people ask that kind of question, so I went back and looked back to how did it all started. So back in 1998 in Mr. Tong's policy address, there's one paragraph that mentioned this. It's like, wow. Just by looking at that, I knew that it wasn't Mr. Tong's idea. It must be somebody who told Mr. Tong, and he decided to agree to put it on it. So I traced further back. How did it all happen, right? So apparently, Mr. Tong's chief advisor at the time is by the name Golden Seal, Xiu Bingqu. So he was the one. And Gordon is a big music lover. So I went to talk to him. I say, why do you think that you have this idea? Then he told me even more history. It's important that you should all know here because everything has a history. Anyone here remember the term 玫瑰園計劃? Some of you do. What is that? By the way, that's Chinese, right? That's not even the official name. The official name is what? What is that? 玫瑰園計劃. This is colonial time, by the way. It's the Airport Core Infrastructure Program. You're right. It shows that how old you are. So it was the British idea at the time. I don't know. I think that was supposedly something to address the confidence issue at the time in Hong Kong, right? People lost their confidence, whatever. So what was that? That was the new airport. But it's not just the airport. It's the entire infrastructure, meaning what? The airport, the Tsing Ma Bridge, the toll road, whatever you call it, and what? What's the last bit? No. So you have the Chalabka Airport, you have the expressway, Yep, the expressway, the Chiang Mai Bridge, and then what's the last part?
Kowloon Station.
And then what else? No, coming back to this way. No, what are you connecting? Chelapko is connecting to what? Central, and meaning what? What is the last piece of the infrastructure to connect to Central? The Western Tunnel. So the entire thing is called the, at the time, you know how much it cost? 140 billion Hong Kong dollars. So when that project was announced, of course, the Chinese were upset. Beijing were upset. Chen Zhuoyi, some of you may remember him, he quoted this. I remember that word. 車毀人亡. Remember? Basically saying, you try to steal our reserve, right? So the big argument at the time, I think at the end they trimmed down some of it. But the British answer to, well, the number one question I think Chen Zhuoyi brought up was, how are we going to fund it? Who's going to pay for it? So a very typical Hong Kong, right? How do you fund it? So imagine, again, you're building the Western Tunnel. Land sales. But land sales from what? Because the Western Tunnel, right? Actually, the whole West Kowloon Cultural District was the reclaimed land for that whole purpose. So meaning what? So Gordon told me from day one, the entire, they don't call it West Kowloon Cultural District at the time. Anyway, just that reclaimed land has one purpose and one aim, only one. Is to build, to sell off to developers, to build fancy apartments, commercial, to pay off the loan. So all along, it's always been a property project, 地產項目, from day one. And hence, Gordon told Mr. Tong, it would be a pity. This is prime Hong Kong land, right, facing the Victoria Harbour, all just for commercial and residential, which must have some arts and culture there. At least that's what Gordon said to me today. Now, I don't know who else can still remember what was that, but I believe it. I believe it. Anyway, so that was why he mentioned that. But there was no specific detail exactly what to do. It was only thereafter, and again, a typical Hong Kong thing. What did we do? We argued for 10 years, right? Well, it started off with Donald Tsang inviting Norman Foster to have the Norman Foster design. Remember our design? Tin Mok, the canopy. Immediately people said, oh, this is custom made for who? You remember this is, huh? But which one? Not UK. Remember, now this is all happened around 2000 something. There was another controversy on the other side of the island. What was that? Cyberport. So it's meant to be for tech. Turns out to be. So a lot of criticism, right? The government's under. And again, for this, everyone, including me, thought, oh, this is not arts and culture. This is just another, because the whole canopy design is so big. 40 hectares land, one canopy. So guess what? It's one developer. Yeah. So which developer can, or maybe not one, but max two, right? Can handle that. It's the same one that have another controversy. So of course everyone criticizes. All the other developers did criticize. So at the end, government decided, okay, they retract, and then decided to do what we now see, right? So, but what my point is, of course, there's, who's going to fund? So I know we don't have a lot of time, but I know you have a whole lot of other questions, but sorry. I think this is important. I want to tell you this message. Why is it important, the background first? Because first thing first was, there was a history of that, the purpose of that land at the time, okay? Now, I claim some credit, but I don't know how much it's just me, but for sure at the time. So after the canopy idea was scrapped, we redo, there were many design, and because I was already at the time executive council, and I was pushing for one design that I thought was the way that we should go for, Not everyone agree. In fact, Donald Jung disagreed with me, but I managed to, to convince him to do so back in 2006, I think that was the time. But today I look back and I thought, oh, I don't know whether I've done actually the right thing. But at the time, no one told me the cost of it. And you know what that design? The park design. The Norman Foster park design. And what is the park design? Well, the park. So out of the 40 hectares land, 40 hectares, right? The whole West Kowloon District, 40 hectares, big. Of the 40 hectares, the zoning, 23 hectares is public open space. What is 23 out of 40? More than half. Yeah. What does that mean? It means that half of that 40 hectares cannot make money. Why is it important I tell you the earlier message? You know, this whole thing was always meant to be making money, but we let go that 50%, public open space so Hong Kong people can join. So next time when you bring your friends, your dog, and going to walk on the grass, love it, great. I love it. I push for it. But it's not free. We all pay for it. So that's 23 hectares. So the remaining 17 hectares, we are building 850,000 square meter. That's 850,000 square meters of space. And out of that 850,000, right, because we need to be shown to the public that we are serious about art, guess what? Out of the 850,000, 41% are zoned for arts and culture. 41%. Another 12% for F&B, and then another 42% are for commercial and residential and hotel. Okay? That's the makeup for that 850,000 square meter. Okay, now let me go back to the art and culture. 400 something, right? That's pretty much a 40%, right? That's 40%. So far, of the 40%, we built about already half. And that half is M+, Palace, C3, Lyric, soon to open in 2005, Free Space, okay? Now, C3 is, Lyric's not open yet, right? So only what is open is Palace, M+, Free Space, and C3. Just based on those, last year, full year, we lost 710 million operating loss. By the time we open Lyric, that will add another 300 million. So our recurring losses will be over 1 billion, rising, okay? Because you never make money in arts and culture. I didn't know before, I know now. And when I check with all the other Tate Modern, Museum of Modern Art, any other public these museums and visual art, spaces in the world, nobody make money. The question is, who will subsidize them? Tate Modern is 50% recovery, right? So the US model is big endowments. Apparently European model is government subsidy. What's Hong Kong model? What's Hong Kong model? It's only one model. No. Of course it's real estate. That is the only model. So from day one, that 40% of commercial residential is to finance that 40% arts and culture. Otherwise, there's no way they can sustain. But what is the problem today? The problem is there's a mismatch of timing. Our arts and culture is built and costing us 700, 800 million, but yet we have no income because there was a delay. What was the delay? Because we were building the high-speed rail. So the high-speed rail is very close to where we were supposed to do the commercial and residential, and there was a 7 years delay. So it's only now that we're going to be auctioning out. But now it's the worst time to auction out. Now the commercial is dead. So that's why we're in crisis today. Yet we don't have the income, but yet the cost is coming up. So that's a mismatch of funding. Let me assure you, 40 years down the road, this whole place is self-sustained. Don't worry. So tell your children, if you have children, that they will be okay. They will be great. we're going to have some problem today. We have to figure out how to deal with this problem right now, especially today, given that the market, right? There's definitely people will question why you sell today. You're not going to sell at a good price. Well, it's only really actually down to two options. Either you sell today, or the government have to fund you. Right? You're not going to walk away from this. This is the best thing ever happened to Hong Kong. This is the one piece, the arts and culture, that reconnect Hong Kong back to the world. This is the one thing I can still go and defend Hong Kong. When any visitors come and challenge Hong Kong, I'm not quite challenge, question whether Hong Kong still have one country to system, I have to take them to see the museum. And this is how we distinguish ourselves from Shanghai and the rest of China. This is still the one thing. So thank goodness that all these years of different governments continue to push on. Yes, we do have a money issue, but we'll figure it out way. It's not the end of the day. So I'm very, I think this is the best thing ever. Now, why I'm being put in the job? Well, I put on the Palace Museum job because at the time Carrie Lam said, hey, this is a very important project for Hong Kong, and she asked me to be in charge. So I told Carrie, I said, yes, I study studio art. By the way, you mentioned that I studied studio art. I studied. The way the reason I studied studio art wasn't because of my choice, because I was sick. I was sick all the time. I was off campus all the time, and of course no Zoom at the time. So the one class that I can keep taking that allows me to be off campus was art. That was the only reason why I got to art. Turns out the best thing ever happened to me again, right? Carrie asked me you should be in charge. I told her that, sorry, I know Chinese art. Worse, I don't like Chinese art. But she said, no, this is important. You have to be in charge. So she sent me there, and the first thing I ever did, maybe Vivian heard this story before. So the first thing I have to do, unlike M+, where we actually have our own collection, we have nothing with Palace. So we have to borrow from Beijing. So my very first visit to Beijing Palace Museum is to see my counterpart, the museum director of Palace Museum. And the very first time, it's like this. So I led my delegation, my board members are all very experienced collectors and, I don't know, historians and so on. The only one that have clueless is the chairman, me. So I was like this, the Beijing, and me, and the Beijing executive and my delegation. And the very first thing my counterpart asked me was, Mr. Chan, how many times, in Putonghua of course, how many times have you been to my museum? I said, well, today is my first time. And you can tell that he's thinking, what on earth Hong Kong government sent this guy to talk to me? But turns out that was the best thing ever happened again too, because I'm being so ignorant, I actually see it from a different perspective. Right? I see it from this. So because at the end of the day, since we don't have a lot of time left, this is actually where I think is when I say Hong Kong, how you add value, right? I can tell you the Palace Museum story. I have many more. You have to invite me back again. But just to give you the Palace Museum story. So I asked the museum director, I say, hey, we are opening the Hong Kong Museum. Do you see this as a threat to you, right? So the guy looked at me and was like, what dumb ass. It's like, why would you be a threat to us? I have 1.3 million objects in my museum. Any one time, I'm showing less than 2%. So you are actually helping us, right, to showcase Chinese civilization to the world. But then he reminded me one thing. He said, please, do it differently. Do it differently. So I came back to Hong Kong. I have to use this. I spoke to my team, my curate, my museum director. I said, listen, someone as ignorant as me, right? Assuming this is a ceramic, let's just assume this is a ceramic. I said, listen, we're not doing this for the Chinese art experts, right? Those people, we can leave them alone. They know what they're talking about, right? But for the rest of us, honestly, why would they need to come to Hong Kong, right? Everyone say the best is in either Taipei or Beijing. Some might even argue British Museum. So why come to Hong Kong, right? So here you are. This is ceramic. Honestly, I can't tell this is Qing, Ming, Tang, they all look the same to me, right? So whether you put this in Taipei, Beijing, or London, it's all the same to me. So how do we distinguish Hong Kong? Why they come to us? To me, it's always about how we tell the story. It's a storytelling. That's Hong Kong advantage. Hong Kong is able to tell that different story. It's the same object, right? We borrow from Beijing. But it's how we present it and how we tell the story. That's how it all started. So 5 years after, the museum director from Beijing came for our opening. We showed him around. And he said to me, wow, we learned something. We're going to go back and follow you. Because in Beijing, apparently, there's so many objects. They go by a different period. In Hong Kong, if you've been to our museum, the Palace Museum, Gallery 2, it's about the lives of the emperor, 24 hours. So we use the objects to tell how he lived his life. It's a whole different approach. See, this is how I say Hong Kong can create that difference, right? We have less baggage, and we are connecting to the world, right? You have to see it from the foreign perspective. You can't expect someone from overseas to come and try to learn your 3,000 years of history, just like that. I can't even do that. So we got to figure a way, right? And plus the same. We have the single largest contemporary Chinese art collection in the world. Why? Because nowhere else in the mainland can freely display these artwork. We can. Of course, I'm always constantly have to worry about whether I get into trouble. But that's the beauty of Hong Kong. Nothing comes easy, but we got to figure out that way. If it's easy, why anybody can do it, right? So, and Beijing want us to do this, to keep it that way, right? They specifically say, do it different, right? They don't need another Shanghai and Beijing. They got plenty. But of course, they don't exactly tell you how. So the question now we all here in Hong Kong have to face is, are we ready to stomach risk-taking? Today, this is the problem. We are second-guessing too much about Beijing. And worse, I'm talking about the government as well, I think people tend to be risk-averse because nobody wants to make a mistake. And these sort of things like, oh, can I do it or can I not do it? And we are second-guessing. I understand why you're second-guess because nobody tells you exactly what you can, what you can't. And that's the problem. But to me, I always think you have to take that risk. A calculated risk, I hope. But you have to take the risk because by taking the risk, of course, if you make it right, you are adding value to China. But by doing nothing, we will be obsolete anyway. I don't know if you agree with my analysis, but I really think whether it's arts and culture or whether it's in whatever profession you come from, we must create that. No one's going to tell you what's okay, what's not okay. Certainly not Hong Kong government, because they also try to figure out what's okay, what's not okay. But it's up to us. That's how I see it.
So just to wrap up, I'll do a quick round of rapid-fire questions.
Quick. Do you have time for that? I thought okay, all right, okay.
Quick question, quick answers.
Right, okay.
All right. Leader you most admire?
Now, I'm sure by now you probably know Mr. Tong. I'm sorry, it's not going to quick answer because I have to elaborate. Mr. Tong, I mean, this guy's really dedicated. I have a long story, but we don't have time today. He may not be the great politician because he's not a politician, but Mr. Tong dedicated his whole life, for Hong Kong and for the country. It's amazing. Whether he's done right thing, good thing, doesn't matter. The fact that he has no ulterior motive. He did it just for us. And that's the only reason why I'm agreeing to take up his foundation, because he's just an amazing man that at his age still continue to have Hong Kong and China in his heart.
So the second one, the thing we will be most surprised to learn about you.
Some of you may know, but because my wife wants to teach my kids, well, they're not kids anymore, but he wants to teach my two sons to take care of themselves. So very early on, we have no helpers at home. So I have to do all the household chores. So during COVID, because we had part-time helpers to come to do the major cleaning. Everything else is, we have to take care ourselves. But during the COVID time, even the part-time helper is not in. So I have to clean the toilets. I have to clean all the things that I never thought I have to do, and I still do. And I have to do my own laundry, except that for the shirt I don't press. I send off to dry cleaner. But everything else I steam and I clean I laundry everything myself. Because each of us has a task at home.
True. Your favorite sport?
And worse than at work. At work, I delegate all my colleagues here and Vivian. At home, I'm being delegated to do it.
All right. Your favorite sport?
Beach volleyball.
Your biggest fear?
Biggest fear? Regret. Regret for not doing something.
Okay. Your proudest achievement?
Long story. I founded a company. It's called the Bank Consortium Trust. It's an MPF company. It's an alliance of 10 local banks. It's a long story to explain. But because when MPF came and it's the fear of the local bank being marginalized by the big bank. So I came up with this idea to join the alliance. So I managed to get all 10 banks together to form this company. Again, it's the same concept again. Why me? Because among the 10 banks at the time, we were the smallest. So I'm no threat to anybody. So everyone's very happy to allow me to take the lead. So I was the chairman of the company at the time, and because again, I was like, nobody sees us as a threat. And the company continued to be a major company today. We are top 5 in the market. So, yeah.
So last one.
And that was when I was still 30-something.
So your well wishes for Hong Kong?
I think I already said it, right? Don't give up. Don't give up. Believe in ourselves.
Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Bernard Chan.
Thank you.
And his contribution to Hong Kong.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to run off to my...
We got you a gift all the way from BU. We know you work out every day, so we got you a BU workout shirt. Oh, wow. Hope you like it.